what we have, I think we have a wonderful panel which is representing three, core tenets of the BFSI industry, right? We have a fintech, we have a life insurance, right? And then we also have an NBFC. So I think it's important that, we kind of get to hear different divergent viewpoints. I'm sure in some cases the views will converge. But, if I can start off with talking about, the fintech space first, right? And, if I look at Paisabazaar, right? I mean, long before AI, the core business model has been built around digital strategy, right? I mean, obviously your user journeys, everything is centered around digital. Now with AI coming in, how are you using AI fundamentally to transition the business model?
How we choose AI to deploy is basically either it should bring in efficiency, or it should bring in experience, like it should give a better consumer experience, or third, it should bring in lot of intelligence. These three aspects we typically uh, these rules which we try to fit in wherever there is a AI use case. Now, at a consumer application side, if you see our credit bureau program, what we have realized over 50, 60 million consumers who got the credit report, lot of people, I would say 30, 40% of people having credit score less than 700. And because of that, they don't understand why it is low first. Because of that, they're not getting loans, they're not getting credit cards. And so we have a service called Credit Advisory, where we advise customers how you can build up your credit score, what actually means, what are the factors which really contribute to your credit score. One of the use case was to have a AI, again Gen AI, so that we can teach customer, we can explain it to consumer, like what this credit report is about, what are the factors you should really look into it, and what are the ways you can improve your credit score. That's one of the AI implementation we have done, which is working beautifully. It like creating a chat on top of it, creating a video on top of it, but the core engine is where it understands your data, and it's all in-house built. It understands your data and it guides you. So that's a one use case. Now, the second biggest use case for us is, like, you see, being a consumer marketplace, one of the core proposition is to give the best loan or a best credit card to the consumer. Now, being a marketplace, we have a lot of partners, plethora of partners and credit cards options with us. So whenever you visit Paisabazaar and you want to avail for a loan, I can show you a bank number 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4, or I can simply sort it on a chronological order, or say the revenue order, like whosoever I get most revenue. But how we do is, we have a proprietary models which works on multiple attributes and try to give you the best offer, and it tells you why it is the best offer for you, right? Maybe because you are in urgency of a fund, so the E2E, which is like 5-minute disbursal loan, should be the best offer for you. Maybe you have a lot of credit enquiries in your credit report, and hence these lenders will not lend you. And given we have that access to data, we are able to deploy those models, have tested it at scale, and it's working beautifully, right? Both for credit cards and loans. Third use case, again, we have a large setup of customer success agents, which is typically our call center, where we call consumer and we guide and tell them what is the right thing for them.
So, Amit, if I can come to you, right, in terms of, in terms of the life insurance business, right, one of the biggest challenges, you would have seen is the entire customer journey in terms of your claims processing side, right, and how you engage with the customer and the retention of the customer. So, how are you using, AI or Gen AI in this case, in terms of kind of, looking at some of these core challenging areas of the business, which are fundamentally impacting your P&L on a day-to-day basis? If you could throw some light there.
So, good afternoon, panel members, and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for being here. So, as a life insurance company, we talk about stuff which we usually don't talk about in our day-to-day life, right? Which is 3Ds, which is death, disease, and disability. You ask a very important question because the time when it comes for us to fulfill our promise, the person who has taken the product from us might not be there. And that makes it a very emotional, at the same time very uh, significant decision from an insurance standpoint of view, that how do I, as an insurance company, and from the customer journey point of view, the interaction, the underwriting, the issuance of policy, how do we assess a life and everything, we don't commit a mistake. Because our mistake might be impacting somebody's financial aspirations. Obviously, we can't replace a human being, but definitely we are that backbone of a financial aspiration, which my customer might have taken me being as their preferred financial protection partner, right? So with respect to journey and all, I think the first thing is that we play with a lot of data. Being a life insurance company, we just don't have a financial information of our customer, but we do have life stage information. We also have customers' medical records and all other sorts of information. Claim is something which we are here to pay for. Our ultimate objective is the evident of this whole industry lies in that when we pay claim. So rather than putting it at the claim stages and making a process maybe more efficient and all, the real use case lies that what you do at a pre-claim stage. Are we able to assess the right life? Are we able to assess the right human life value? How effectively we have been able to do it, right? Insurance being a low engagement product, most of the customers even don't know that for some of the questions, if they're writing yes or no, what are the repercussions, right? And that is where this whole data accumulation piece comes in, where we apply our logics in a way which are as per the customer's ecosystem in which they are able to understand. Let me give you an example. If I may ask you how many surgeries of X, Y, Z kind of a thing you have done, rather than if I ask you that if you take a BP medicine, give me the name of the medicine, and rest I'll manage, right? In the conventional world, it was not that easy. But in today's world, by just the name of the medicine, and there are hundreds of it, I can actually align an attribute. So not only I'm able to make a faster decision, but now I'm able to play more attributable data, which earlier was not possible, right? The other part is when it comes to financial things, right? India is there, but there is also Bharat, right? And we do financial underwriting with a perspective that what is the ability of a customer to pay an insurance, and is the family is rightly protected or not with respect to the financial piece. If I have to give you an insurance, and obviously within 5 minutes or 10 minutes, so that the customer says, okay, it's a very pretty fast product, I'm getting it what I want. With a lot of other data which is available in the market, for example, I can get a financial eligibility right from your Vahan. I can do a reverse engineering, and you might not be paying a well of ITR, which is okay, but with the kind of car you are driving, I can very much assess who you are, what you do, right? With the other aspects of data, we call it artificial versions of truth, which are more sustainable, which are more significant and trustworthy, rather than somebody collating it manually, right? Now, all these pieces, when you put together 10 years ago, might not be possible. It might have taken you 10 days, 12 days to do it. But today, with the use of data, with the use of propensity model and everything, we're able to assess it.
How you curate those personal journeys, right? Your applications, and we were talking about applications, right? And you are in charge of looking at these applications and building them out at Hero. How are you looking at fundamentally reimagining these applications? Because applications have been around for a while now, right? I mean, it's not something which is absolutely new, and it was long before the AI boom. So how are you imbibing this technology to fundamentally, because that's your first point of connect with the customer, right? In a way that how you're going to either, acquire a customer or, be part of their journey. How are you building out these apps fundamentally? Is it complete overall of the apps, or are you, looking at specific elements within the apps that you want to use AI for? It would be fascinating to hear from you in terms of how you are basically curating this experience.
From lending perspective, if I talk about, there are two perspectives. One is that customer-facing applications, and second is what is kind of assisted journeys, which are being utilized by my sales team, etc. So at both levels, basically, we need to fast track from the perspective of customer engagement, which we need to fast track, which we need to increase. And with AI coming into picture, that is quite easier. And that's where what we are doing, that wherever pain areas we are having as of now, there we are embedding the Gen AI features, capabilities, etc., to fast track the customer engagement and customer service basically. So that is the area which we are in right now. The future is definitely we are looking for the complete end-to-end journeys, which can be Gen AI based, kind of Gen AI wizards and all, which can be utilized. It is not a static kind of flow. This can be a dynamic flow based upon the customer, what kind of customer is there. So that is the future which we are already looking at. But right now, if I talk about, we are already using quite a good use cases in lending space. So first of all, the biggest problem was before AI that how to communicate with the customer every time 24/7 and make the communication like human related kind of communication. So Gen AI solved that particular problem. So if you go to our website as well, we have already embedded a bot called H.AI. So that bot is the first a point of contact for any customer for to Hero. So if they are having any kind of questions that what kind of loans etc. or services are being provided by the Hero, or if it is already an existing customer, he wants to understand that what is my EMI, I want a foreclosure letter, I want some details about my loan, or I am having some queries, etc. Everything he can just talk to that particular bot 24/7, and it gives the answers like a human is sitting at other place basically. So that kind of comfort it gives to the customers. So that is the first leg where we have reduced the time from the perspective of earlier when he was raising a concern or raising a request that was going to human agent, then he was doing that activity, then it was revert. It was taking 2 to 3 days of time, which is reduced to 2 to 3 minutes, I would say now, when he is writing on that particular bot. So that is quite interesting use case which we have already implemented and it is already working. Apart from that, in the background, like the other use case which I spoke about, the assisted journeys. So for assisted journeys, majorly we are using Salesforce, which my sales team, credit teams, or ops teams, etc., are using. The complete flow is basically built on Salesforce. So there, what we have embedded, some of the use cases, a Gen AI layer of Salesforce is called Agent Force, which we are using. So one of the interesting use case there, what we have done, that the document verification, which is done by operations team, that is quite heavy from the perspective of that they need to check each and every parameter from source and compare it. If any of the parameters is missing or not correct, they need to then send it back to the salespeople. Then they will work on that. So ultimately, it is kind of a 3 to 4 days of work for application, and more than 100% nego rates we were having. More than 100% means one application goes back to sales sometimes more than once as well. So we were having more than 100% nego rate over there. So what we have done with Agent Force with Gen AI, that we have automated this particular area and the documents, so that 3 to 4 days per application what we are spending, that is logically it is going to zero basically, 0 minutes. So that kind of efficiency we are getting using AI. So there are multiple other use cases as well which we have implemented. So I think those we can talk for an hour over there.
Yeah.
But I would not.
Humans have that innate thing in their head that, I can only trust another human or the financial advisor who's giving them that advice. Traditionally, that has been the model, right? So how do you cater for that in terms of, a bias in a model, or kind of, saying that, okay, the model is trustworthy enough for it to give personalized advice on a credit score, which could affect his or her ability to get credit, right? So how do you cater for that?
Typically, when we talk about LLMs or any Gen AI models, ChatGPT, or any other model for that matter, they are being trained on very large data set, like the data set which is available on internet, which is publicly available, and hence they can answer, give you answer. They can go to any path. Like if you see the tree or graph, they can go into any different edge, and hence at times they hallucinate, or you try to create a prompt which typically guardrail it. For us, when we have to, and we call it, say, remote models, right? If I have to use that remote model, I might use that remote model only for the interpretation of what questions customer is asking. So even on a chat or any interface, in India, customers speak multiple languages. They write multiple languages. We typically write English, try to write Hindi
Yep.
using English. So in that case, the generic models helps to give me the intent. Once I get the intent, then intent translation to the data or facts is my own model, which solely rely on the data which I have. And that data pertains to the customer. So earlier we used to have a rule-based system. You have rules,
Yep.
right? Like if you have these many inquiries, then it means you are credit hungry. If your credit utilization of credit card is super high,
Right.
then again you have a lack of credit, and hence you're overutilizing your credit availability. If you have too many lending lines, loan lines, and we can see your income, and we can see the disparity or disproportionate behavior, then again it's a signal.
red flag, yeah.
It's a red flag. So these are different rules and analysis. And once you give it to the model and you train the model, like if this is how these are the factors, and this is how it typically yields to your credit score or your loan application, then your model is built.
Coming to you, Amit, in terms of the actual models per se, right? There is obviously an element of, and you said that, obviously from a life insurance perspective, you're dealing with one of the most critical aspects of it, right? How are you looking at, the models, the underlying fundamental models from a risk scoring methodology perspective, right?
Right or wrong also have two perspectives. One is from the ethical standpoint. I might do a right thing, but the process might not be right. My result orientation is right. I'm actually getting the right result, but the way I've chosen is not right. And the other part is that technically it is the right thing, but it is not yielding me the right result, right? So the first thing that is the rule of explainability. I will not go into very technical terms and everything, but for anybody to trust someone is to know that person first, right? I think with AI, especially with AI, there is always a conventional gap between a user and a modeler, right? The modeler will say, I have given you the best model, and the user will say, but it doesn't work, buddy. All other models which I've seen everywhere else works. And this guy will also say that I have also made all other models everywhere, they work everywhere, but for some reason you don't know what you need. Whether it is a boardroom, whether it is a panel discussion, whether it is anywhere, these two buddies are never happy. I think the thing is that how well I integrate and learn about this side of the story, and how well that person learns this side about the story. The first step is to understand the business as a whole. The second step is, and we talk about a lot of mis-selling, but I would stop and I will use the word called let's stop mis-buying also. Right? Just because I have a chat GPT in my phone doesn't mean I can solve all my life problems, right? So how can it solve all the problems which I have in my organization? So let's solve mis-buying also. And the third aspect is, what is the real use case I'm trying to solve? So typically audit practices what you have written and whether you are following it or not, right? But the problem with AI is that where it is written, right? Everybody will send you some jargon that my model is Gemini based. Somebody will say I've taken it from this and that. I think the right practices, which we also follow in our organization, is we basically build it on three parameters. One is how ethical it is. And when we say ethical, it means it should not give me any output based on the cohort of our data, which might not be equal. The other part is how well I'm actually protecting my data also. In the Mentimeter also, all of you guys have mentioned that cybersecurity is a risk, and that is why no organization is putting ChatGPT in their company, right? That upload your annual report, give your balance sheet, and let's make a report and solve it. That's the reason for that. So that aspect is there. And third is the human intervention or the human looping.
So thank you so much for everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.